So let's see if I can get the trick. So good morning. I have a question for you all. How many of you played the game of life when you were a kid? And how many of you, now that you're adults, feel like you're still trying to figure out the game of life? Like the real one, not the board one. So me too, but the ironic thing is that when I was in college, I had it all figured out. See, I was a management major because everybody knows that if you're successful, then you're a manager. So right there, I was ahead of the game. Right out of school, I got a job with this big, pretentious management consulting firm because if managers are the shit, what does that make the people who managers go to for advice? And within the very first year of working there, I was fired twice for the same job. I really hated it. And I realized that even if I understood what the path to success was, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so I ran the other direction. And instead of becoming a manager at this big, pretentious firm, I became a geek, a coder, a hacker at this scrappy little startup. And I loved it. It was the coolest thing ever. I was getting to create things that no one had ever created before. And the people that I worked with were amazing. So rather than these personality void professionals, clones in their suits, these were brilliant minds that were passionate and creative and were just awesome in their uniqueness. And this was the .com era, so we were out there, we were changing the world, and I felt like I was in my element. I felt like I had come home. But then the .com bubble burst after doing this for several years, and so I had to find another path. So I started thinking about, well, how else can I change the world? And there's this software stuff that's all around us, right? And I thought, there's so much potential for what could be happening there, so much potential that's not tapped. And so I started going around and helping teams and organizations to improve how they develop software. And this was amazing in theory, but in reality, most of my customers were these big, slow-moving companies that were sort of the exact opposite of these fast-paced, high-energy, scrappy startups that I'd come to love so much. And so I just didn't feel like I was making the impact that I wanted to make. I didn't feel that I was going to change how software works one team at a time. I needed to reach a bigger audience. But this was intimidating, right? I mean, who the hell am I to stand up and say that I know a better way than everyone else? And so I agonized for months, years. I wanted to get my voice out there, but I was so nervous. I mean, was I good enough? Did I know enough? Was I ready? And so finally one day, I decided, all right, I'm just gonna do something simple. I'm just gonna do a blog post and put it up on my company's blog. And I spent weeks doing the perfect blog post. When I finally perfected it, I gave it to my manager. He looked to post on the blog, and he looks at it, and he says, Abby, I don't think this represents the quality that we want representing our company. And in hindsight, I can only imagine that what he really meant was, Abby, this post does not look like the others on our blog. Because this manager was very into conformity. I had been with a cool little company. We'd been bought out by this big company that believed that each of us had our place, our own little box that we were to stay in. We were to stay within the confines of our box and not step outside its boundaries. And so I could write code, but I couldn't write blog posts. So I created my own blog, and I called it the Hacker Chick blog in sort of rebellion of my company because clearly they thought I was just a hacker chick, what do I know? And honestly, it was a little less intimidating because who's even gonna find my blog amongst the hundreds of thousands of blogs out there, right? So I just started writing. I started writing about what I'm passionate about. I started writing about how I believe that we can develop better software. I started writing about my ideas. And a crazy thing happened. People started finding my blog. And not just any people. but famous people. So not like, you know, the Lady Gaga and Justin Bieber that were just up there, but like Jim McCarthy. So Jim McCarthy wrote this book called The Dynamics of Software Development that was the book that got me interested in helping teams to develop better software. He was the one who inspired me down this path that I'm on. And he found my blog, and he commented on it about how much he liked it. And I thought, that is awesome. And I was hooked. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to give back to this amazing software community that I had gotten so much from. And so I started getting involved in Boston software groups. I started presenting at conferences and events. Pretty crazy for a hacker chick, right? And the crazy thing was that even though I was doing this all in my spare time, you know, evenings, weekends, using my vacation to go to conferences, I found that for everything that I gave of myself, I got back 100-fold. And the epitome of this was when Microsoft says to me, we really like what you're doing in the software community, and we'd like you to come do it for us. And not only do we want to pay you for this thing that you love so much, that you've been doing in your spare time, but here's the cincher. We want you to do it for the startup community, which I so missed working for. And so my message to you today is forget what others think is success. Because I believe that there is a correlation, a very strong correlation, between how happy you are with what you're doing and how successful you will be. And so I want to encourage all of you to do the crazy thing and stray from this path of success to follow your passions, because I believe when you do, that is when you will rock. So, speaking of rocking, I was reading this blog post on the On Startups blog by Jason Baptiste, and he said something like, they used to say that everyone should try to be a rock star at least once in their lives, and I think you should add to that and also be an entrepreneur. But I think, well, let me ask, so how many people here have started their own business before? That's awesome. So a lot of hands went up if you didn't see that. Yeah. I think all of you are the rock stars, because you're out there and you're creating things that didn't exist before. You're providing products and services and making it possible for people to do things that they couldn't do before. And you're creating jobs. And so when we look at where jobs are created, the vast majority are created by small businesses, right? And so when the government looks at how are we going to fix this jobs problem in this country, they're looking at you, because you're going to be the ones that fix it. And so I believe that you are the rock stars. So I thought that was kind of a funny distinction that you made. But anyway, I digress. I guess my point was, when I read this blog, it just kind of got me thinking. And I think, maybe this is crazy, but I think that even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you're not up on stage before your millions of screaming fans, that you should still be a rock star. Because I think when you put yourself out there and share what you're doing with the world, what you're thinking, what you're creating, what you're building, I think that only wonderful can come of it. And I think that if you have this belief in yourself, this belief that you rock, that it gives you permission to be awesome. And people are going to take notice. And I think that's always been the case, right? When you talk to someone who's really passionate about what they do, it's hard not to be in awe of them. But now, with all these channels that are available through social media, your audience is so much larger, and so you can reach the Jim McCarthys and the Microsofts of the world, and so many opportunities are out there. So I think it's a really exciting time. Really exciting time if we could find a way to get outside of our comfort zones. And so I'm really inspired by what Eleanor Roosevelt said, which is do one thing every day that scares you. But here's the good news. I don't think that you have to do it alone. I think if you look, you'll find that there's others out there that share your interests. And so for me, that's startups. For you, it might be the people that are passionate about what your products and services are representing, your customers, your partners, your potentials. And just ask yourself, who is it that I want to reach with social media? Because that is your community. And I believe if you can work with these communities, then you can amplify your efforts 1,000 times over. And you don't have to do it alone. So when I first wanted to start doing more with the software community, and I wanted to get involved in the Boston software groups, I drive down to Boston, I go to a Boston Spin meetup. And my first night there, they mentioned that they're looking for an editor. So on a whim, because I really like writing, I volunteer. Never mind that I had zero history with the Boston software community. Never mind that I had never been an editor before. They put me to work editing articles from some of the top names in software development. And before I know it, I find that I'm part of this community of thought leaders. A couple years later, I got the job at Microsoft. I heard about this lean startup thing, and I wanted to learn more about it, so I go to a lean startup meetup. And I think it's pretty neat. So I go up to the organizers, John Pendergast and Matthew Mamet, and I say, wow, I love what you're doing here. How can I help? And they make me a co-organizer. And before I know it, I'm one of the first names people are coming to when they want to do stuff with Lean Startup in Boston. Pretty crazy, right? I mean, in both cases, just to be very clear, I was vastly underqualified. I mean, I hardly even knew what Lean Startup was. But in both cases, I became so immersed in the topic that I almost couldn't help but become an expert at it, which I think would have been so difficult to do on my own. So you might say, well, Abby, you were lucky. Right place, right time. But I believe that when we're tuned into our passions and our strengths, that we're so much more open to not only noticing, but also acting upon these opportunities around them. Of course, when we find that amazing opportunity, we have to make sure that we have the time and energy so we can really give it our all. Because otherwise, what's the point? What are we doing it for, right? So I love this quote by Derek Sivers, who, by the way, is another awesome entrepreneur, who says, if I'm not saying hell yeah to opportunities, then I'm saying no. Because we want our lives to be about the hell yeahs. The other way to tap the power of the community is to just ask. Crazy, right? So a few things that I've gotten by just asking. Authors who I do not know at all, but who I highly admire, have sent me free copies of their books to hand out as giveaways at presentations where I've presented about materials that I've learned in those books. One of the authors in particular, Michael Bungay-Stanier, who wrote this amazing book, Do More Great Work, I loved the book so much that I tweeted about it. The author noticed and tweeted back to me. And I found out that he's going to be in Boston. So I don't know this guy from anyone. I think this is totally crazy, but I have to ask. And so I say, well, when you're in Boston, I don't suppose you'd like to do a workshop for startups, would you? And he agreed. So I think that people want opportunities to share the awesome that they're doing. And I think if you can give them that, if you can give them ways that are going to amplify their message, that they will do amazing things for you. So just ask. So I talk a lot about community. And as an evangelist, part of my job is to be an influential or a thought leader within my community. Which is kind of a daunting task. So you might be saying, well, gee, glad that I'm not an evangelist, so I don't have to do that. But I would ask you, how many people are here today to use social media to promote their business or the brand? Yeah. So I would say that you're all evangelists. And therefore, I would argue that you're all responsible for becoming influentials in your communities. So how do you become a thought leader to this audience that you're trying to reach? Well, I know how you don't do it. You don't do it by following the pack, by saying what everybody else is saying, right? Because there's billions of people out there in the blogosphere and the Twitter stream, and you're not going to get noticed by saying the same thing as all of them. So I was actually conveniently on a call about this very topic just a couple of weeks ago at Microsoft. And we were talking about how startup evangelists can become influentials within their local startup communities. And someone said to me, well, Abby, you've been really successful with Lean Startup. Do you think that's the answer, right? Should we just make all the startup evangelists will be experts at lean startup, and boom, they'll be influentials. And I went, no, I don't think that that's what the answer is. I think that the startup evangelists should think about what their strengths are and what their passions are, and then think about their Venn diagram for where that intersects with what their communities are interested in. And that is what they should specialize in. Because I believe when you're operating from a place of what you're good at and what you love, that is your personal sweet spot. And so I think if you can think about what your Venn diagram is and where your passions and strengths intersect with what your community is interested in, then I think that is the place from which you will be the most dangerous, the most kick-ass, and the most awesome. So I love this quote by William James. He says, "To change one's life, start immediately. Do it flamboyantly, no exceptions." So, with that in mind, we're actually going to do an exercise right now to start you on your path. And I'm going to look at my notes so I get the instructions right. So we're going to look at, you're going to think about what your passions are, what your strengths are, and how they might overlap with what your community is interested in, which is obviously way too much to do in the 15 minutes that we have here. But that's okay, because fortunately, I specialize in working with startups so they're all about doing way too much in not enough time. So we're going to use a lean startup practice called minimum viable product, which is how can we create the smallest possible thing that will get us to the next step. And a lot of times, if we can get an early version of something out there, even if it's really crude, it's always easier once we have that first version out there, and then we can refine it into what we want. So today it's just about getting that first scrappy version out there. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
I wasn't very enthusiastic. Are you guys ready? All right. Okay, so in front of you are some note cards. This says 3 note cards, and ignore that. However many you have, I think you have like 5. Step 1 is that on the front of each card, so the unlined side, you're going to write either a passion or a strength, bonus points if it's both. And the rules are, there's 1 passion or strength per card. Just do as many as you can in the time. And I want you to use few simple words. I don't want to see any buzzwords. I don't want to see any $100 words. You're not trying to impress anyone. I want you to speak from the heart. And we're going to have 2 minutes, which is way too fast. So I'm going to ask that there's please no talking, but we will get an opportunity to share when we're done. So does that make sense to people? All right, so get started. You can use a few words per card, but just try to keep it few and simple. Okay, that's time. So you guys are impressive because when I do stuff like this with a software group, people just talk throughout the whole thing. So thank you. Okay, step number 2 is to take one of those cards, whichever one strikes your fancy, and flip it over. And I want you to write down on the opposite side a way that you think this might overlap in some way with something that your community is interested in. And I'd like you to try to be creative and not just state the obvious. I'll give you an example, is when I started with Microsoft, So when I started with Microsoft, my strength and my passion was around agile software development. And I knew that my community was interested in something called Lean Startup, but I didn't actually know what it was. But I understood that agile was actually a part of that. So for me, it was saying, hey, let me learn about what this Lean Startup thing is and see if I can use it to start helping and mentoring startups. So I'm going to give you a little bit more time. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work on this one. For some people, it'll be faster than others. If you finish, you can go ahead and start on another one, but you just need to do one. So 3 minutes, and you can start. Okay, that's time. So now what I'd like everyone to do is turn to one of the people next to you and share what you've written on both sides of your card. We're gonna try. I don't remember doing one thing every day that scares you. Okay, guys. Thank you. Can I get your attention back again? So I want to thank everyone for doing that and for stepping outside their comfort zones a little. If I could get everyone's attention again. Thank you. You're such a helpful audience. Okay, so I think it was awesome that you each got to hear one others, but I would like to ask if there might be 5 daring souls who would be willing to come up front with their card and share what they've done, just so that people can hear a few more. And so if I could get 5 volunteers to come up here, just so if you're interested, just come on up, and we'll take the first 5, and we'll just go through really quickly. And if you could, okay, I think we've got 5, so we're good. Thank you. Okay. This is what I'm going to ask you each to do. If you could just state your name, the organization or brand that you're with, and then just read what's on each side of your card.
My name is Bill Powers. My company is Oriental Consulting. We do IT consulting for small businesses that don't have their own IT departments. Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
All right, I'll keep it closer. My name is Bill Powers. My company is Oriental Consulting. We do IT consulting for small businesses. The card I picked up was, the passion was learning while doing, because what I found is that if you can be learning while you're doing the job, you're going to do a better job the next job, because you get to carry what you learn with you. How they intersect is that each client has problems or goals that provide an opportunity for me to learn about what the client's world is like, learn about the technology that will help them achieve those goals or remove the obstacles. That's what makes the job so exciting.
Thank you so much. Larry, would you like to step up? Thank you.
I'd love to. My name is Sheila Orange. What I wrote on one card is nurturing creativity. Because what I'm good at is assisting dreamers to start or upscale doing what they love and to prosper by it. Because you should get paid to have fun.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Joanne Randall and I have a business called Leader Marketing, and I also have a radio show called New Hampshire Women in Business, and I do a ton of networking. And what I wrote on one side was, you can't hear me, that's rare, was develop business relationships, helping other people develop relationships with each other, excuse me. So I wrote down, developing a business mentoring program where people, business owners in the same community work together to help each other grow. So a new business becomes a mentoree of somebody who's been in the town in business for a while, and they can work together and help each other grow. So I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but I think that would be really cool.
Scrappy first version. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise, and my company is electronics, but I'm looking to do other things. And on the passion part, I wrote food, cooking, and children, dancing, satisfied customers, and results. For my passions, it was being determined and resourceful, and looking at healthy eating habits for kids, more exercise, healthier attitudes. Community would be being more responsible and accountable.
Wow. So you want to
Hello everybody, my name is Paul Donahue. My company is Paul Charles & Associates. We're sales management consultants. We help people to sell more and communicate better. The short side of the card says giving other people hope. And changing behavior and developing new skills we find is difficult, but it often starts by helping other people to believe that it can be done. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank Lanny and Alan for putting this together. We're very honored to be here with you guys today. Thank you. My name's Richard Dale Massaros. I own Kudos Consulting. We do business development work. I wrote down 4 or 5 passions: surprising people, speed and excitement, the outdoors, fitness, and fast cars. One of my clients is Team O'Neill, the rally driving school up north. And I thought kind of a really creative, neat thing to do for our customers was to offer someone the opportunity to come and drive with Ken Block, who drives for Ford and DC Shoes in a rally car, 100 miles an hour siders through the woods. He comes up to Team O'Neill quite frequently to test his cars. So that'd be kind of a neat thing that we could promote within the rally community. People are excited about rally driving, whereby somebody could come up and sit next to Ken as he tests out these cars flying sideways through the woods. So I thought that was a great exercise, because I think it's easy to feel in your gut what you're passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am feeling inspired now, so thank you all. And I would just ask that as you listen to the awesome presenters through the day, that you kind of keep this in mind, is how can you use what you're learning to follow your path of your passions and your strengths. So do we have time for questions? Probably. Oh, we do?
Yep.
Wow.
Couple minutes.
Couple minutes. Okay, so we have a couple minutes for questions, if anyone has any.
Oh, you guys, she travels the country talking to the most cutting-edge people in the development era. So please, if you have questions, that's just...
We got one right here.
Okay.
What's your favorite social media platform?
What's my favorite social media platform is absolutely Twitter. I'm a complete Twitter addict. Yes.
What are you most excited about? Like when you get up in the morning and you turn on the juice, what gets you fired up the most?
So what gets me fired up the most? What I am most excited about right now, it's going to change like every month, but right now today, this notion of building community. So I just got on the board of something called Startup Foundation, which is a Kauffman Foundation organization looking at how they can build startup ecosystems in different cities. And I think that's fascinating. Yes?
Lean startup, you referenced that again. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Lean Startup is a methodology created by Eric Ries. And he looked at, he said, you know, a lot of these startups, they're developing software, and we have all these processes around how we can develop software better, but what does it matter how good we can develop software that nobody wants? And so if we want to be successful with a startup, what's the most important is to really understand what the customer wants. And so he combined agile development with something called customer development that was created by a guy named Steve Blank, and to come up with this method of how we can be successful about doing startups. And really, it's interesting, the focus, instead of on executing, so if you think of a big business, what you're trying to do is execute more, like get stuff out faster and get more customers, right? And in Lean Startup, it's all about learning, because you don't even know who your customers are yet or what that product should be. So learn what it is first before you start executing.
Hello there, Greek.
Sorry, that wasn't me. Yes?
For people, obviously it takes some courage to go with your passion. So for those of us who are kind of on the fence and about to sort of perhaps make that leap, is there anything else you can say to sort of get people off the fence to run with that stuff?
Good questions. The question was for people who are sort of on the fence, who want to get out there with their passion, but they're nervous about it. How do they do it? I think if you can have like a really good friend or mentor that can give you the confidence, like to me, that's where most of my confidence comes from, is just being around really amazing people who believe in me. I think that takes you so far.
Awesome.
Yes.
Also, this one little phrase, Paul Boynton is Paul here yet? Not yet. He's the author of a book called Begin With Yes, and it's a wonderful book, and the concept is the way to go. If you can begin with yes, begin with the best version of yourself, take a little action step every day towards a bigger goal, and not get intimidated by the grand picture of your destiny. This is the best advice you can get. Just begin with yes, a yes attitude, positive results.
Thank you. Are we good? I mean, do we have time for any more, or we're good?
One more.
Okay, we need one more. All right, so, yes.
I just wondered what the top 3 blogs, journals, anything that you read pre-religiously to stay in contact with the world.
Okay, so the question was the top 3 blogs that I read. I am notoriously bad about, I mostly pay attention to what's coming in my Twitter stream, but I'm a huge fan of Seth Godin, so I read his religiously. I think I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, it's always changing who else I'm reading. He's pretty constant. Okay, well, thank you all very much.